let's make sure everything is up and running. So, Restream up and running. Twitch up and running. And eventually, YouTube up and running. Let me just see about these little check marks on the stream on YouTube. Where can I tell it to not automatically stop the stream? Here. Off. Okay, if I off it now, it seems to ignore it. All right, I think we're live. So, I've been dreading this episode, to be honest, because I have not had time to prepare for it. So we're gonna wing it a little bit. I want to do definitely. I'm not gonna do a normal work stream today. I want to experiment a little bit and do a few things. I've got Paint up here. Maybe I can do a pirate software and draw on Paint a little bit. I have no experience with it, so we're gonna have to figure that out. But I'm hoping I can build a few pieces that maybe I can edit together into a little clip down the line, or a little video or something. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the future of SudokuPad, because I've had some comments recently that actually concerned me. People thinking, oh, is this project abandoned? And I'm like, I'm working my ass off every day, all the time. But the project is now 4 years in the making. SudokuPad is more than 4 years old now. And more of my time is spent on keeping the show on the road. And it's not as simple as some people might think. I've had server outages recently. I've had my database go down for 3 days and nobody noticed, because I had a backup system. It's not a very good one, but it worked well enough that not even I noticed, which is also not good. So there's certainly some things about, and let's put some topics down here. So for example, there's some ops and maintenance that needs to happen. So this includes better server infrastructure, and that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, more hardware or anything. It's just maintenance. It could be simple automation, right? So I need currently I'm pulling backups manually. So for example, I'd go here, I'll run a little script, which thankfully I've done. So for example, I have a little script that sets up an SSH channel to the database on the server, and then I'll have to run a second script. And I think it's something like backup, DB, and from AWS. And then it runs a backup, and then I have to restore it, and then I have a local copy, and so on and so forth. This stuff should be automatic, right? And there should be, and because this is actually quite slow over SSH, I need to have something on AWS that does these backups, and ideally, you know, at least daily or maybe twice a day or something like that, right? There's also, I need some sort of dashboard, right? So I'll need dashboard and remote admin, right? So for example, coming up in a couple of days, there is SudokuCon, right? And SudokuCon, I'm gonna be there. Maybe I'll see some of you guys there. But that's gonna be, I'm gonna be far away in the US, and I'm gonna cross my fingers that I'm not gonna get picked up by ice or something, nothing goes wrong, but still, I'll be far enough away that if something goes wrong, I might not easily be able to fix it. Now I'll have my laptop with me, and hopefully there'll be internet there, but I don't know. In Europe, I have fast internet anywhere on my phone. In the US, I don't know, right? And right now, I have to directly SSH into the server. So that means my certificates need to work, everything needs to be up and running. I'll take my laptop with me, I'll test things before, but it would be really nice if I just had a dashboard, if I had a URL I could go to and press buttons and say, oh, just restart this service, or check what service is up and running, or do we have enough space? You know, maybe a log file, we have a runaway log file and the drive is filling up or whatever, right? Like there's a couple of simple things that I definitely would like to see. And this is here, you know, that's less than a month, 2 to 3 weeks away from now. And it's got to be a little bit worrisome for me. I had an actual server outage recently as well. where the server was gone for maybe 5 minutes or so. And it was the way the server runs. It has a whole bunch of different processes that run. So, I have like a sort of kind of like a proxy server. It basically just says, oh, if you're on beta, you got to go here. If you want the API, you got to go here. It manages all the little services behind, and then I have a service for each of those. I have a service for some internal stuff. I have a whole bunch of little services that, CTC Book website runs there, a bunch of little things. And the idea is that this process is super simple. It doesn't really do any processing. It's just, like a little proxy server. But that's the service that went down, and I don't know why, right? And it was as simple as restarting it, but it should also self-restart. But I don't know how well I've configured these sorts of things, right? So that definitely, I need to spend some time cleaning all that up. And that service probably shouldn't be some JavaScript code I wrote. That probably should be just some Apache configuration, right? Because, all it does is manage the SSH certificates and then forward various URLs and to different ports to the microservices that run behind it, right? So that's kind of on my to-do list. So there's a whole bunch of these things. But the problem with these sorts of tasks is that A, they're a lot of work. B, after all that work, nothing really changes as far as the users are concerned. And C, it's very easy to make a mistake and break things, right? If I'm dealing with these central services, maybe I'll forget something that it does that I don't use regularly, but somebody out there uses and relies on, and suddenly that's broken, right? Or it does something and suddenly, something doesn't work in a locality or through some other external thing. And I don't know, right? It's ops stuff is always tricky because you can't really test it either, right? Like what am I going to test with a second setup of this core service? You obviously test that it works, but that's not going to tell you something about, it's hard enough for me to test things with beta because, it doesn't have enough users. It doesn't test the kind of weird things that might happen, right? So, better testing, right? So I always wanted to have a way, first of all, I want to have old versions of the software available on the server, right? The server shouldn't just be what I deploy. The server should have access to all the different versions, so that each version is under that version number in Git. But I'd like, the software isn't very large, so it would be nice that I had like a version folder for each of those versions, right? And a way of serving any one of those, right? So somebody could, for example, if maybe it shouldn't be, but if some special weird puzzle depends on some old feature, or somebody really likes a particular version or something, right? They should be able to go back to that with a URL trick or something. But also, I should be able to just, again, through the dashboard, I should be able to go back and just say, oh, go back to version 1.2 or 0.4 or whatever, right? I think part of this will also be a release of version 1.0. That's purely a emotional thing, like I haven't gone to version 1.0, but I want to specifically do it not with adding new things, right? I think 1.0 will be a little bit of a community celebration for me. It's like, okay, you know what? We've been running this for 4 years. We've been doing so much. It deserves a 1.0. And it should be the start of a new sort of era, right? Like I want to be able to predict what happens in the future. I want to say, hey, you know what? We're going to do a point update every month. And every point update has one visual feature, one whatever, or every other month maybe, right? I want to have maybe every other week to have bug fix updates. Like I want to have a date. I want to organize it ahead of time. I want to have a calendar. I want a place, So I want to know, sometimes I don't release things because I'm worried about it not being tested enough, but then it's no good to anybody and it doesn't really get tested either, right? Part of the sort of automated versioning and version access of this version access is I would like to be able to switch the live production version to the test version at short intervals. So, right, let's say it'll be on beta for volunteer testers for a while, but then maybe a week before the calendar date where it's scheduled to get published, it gets pushed to the main user base for maybe an hour every day or something like that, including, you know, some sort of feedback form button people can press. Hey, you've been trying the new beta of version 1.12. What did you think, right? So we want automatic test publishing to production, you know. Yeah, so temporary, I don't know how to call it. Temporary, yes. Short term, yes. But we're gonna say automatic temporary testing on production, right? So we'll have like a test hour. Hey, Olim, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me on my 200th episode, where I'm going to discuss what I'm gonna plan to do with SudokuPad and what's been happening and where we are and all this sort of thing. So yes, I want to have regular feature releases on schedule, or on a schedule. I'm not gonna force it, but I'd like to have some sort of idea, you know. And I'd like to be able to, you know, I've in the past. Well, we'll talk about the app further down the line. Well, we'll put this down here. All right, the app is a big subject. So the schedule, the way I want to have it is I want to be able to say, hey, there's a feature, it's a certain scale, it's a certain size, a certain urgency. I'm gonna pop open a calendar and I'm gonna put that feature on that calendar, right? It's gonna go, you know, we have a calendar, you know, we have our little calendar, right? And then we can say 1.1 goes here, 1.2 goes here, right? And 1.3 goes here, and 1.15 goes here, etc., right? So I would like to be able to say, you know, and then the features go, ooh, let me see, feature, they go here or here, you know, and we know which version each feature goes to, right? That's kind of the idea. So I don't actually know how, if I need a new page, how I would reset all that in Paint. Zoom, yes. So we have Zoom, right? We have the large puzzle support. Let me see. It should be. I should have that somewhere here. What you guys don't see is I have currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 Chrome windows open, each of which has this many or more tabs. And all of these are pending work, you know, things that I need to do. Notes for the math paper I'm working on. Research I'm doing for server setup, right? Feature research for, some of the stuff is sold, I don't remember. One of these has my paperwork for my taxes in here somewhere. Media appearances, right? That's a page I want to work on. This was, I don't even remember. Okay, that's not important. But one of these actually has a large puzzle open. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Nope, not this one. Not this one. No. Where could that be? No, not that one. SudokuPad, here we go. So this is one of the larger puzzles, right? And obviously it's a chicken and egg, you know. Building a feature for puzzles that don't exist doesn't make sense, but puzzles won't exist unless they're supported. But we have an experimental feature, we have the large puzzle UI, and with that I can scroll in and I can go around, right? Now this was experimental, so I haven't built the support. It needs two main things that are missing. It needs a different layout, because obviously having on a large puzzle it doesn't make sense where the controls are. Excuse me. it doesn't make sense where the controls are. And the other major thing is that it doesn't have any testing for mobile. So I need to make this work with touch controls, right? So this was just to test the mechanisms, but obviously people want to use it on their phones, and that's kind of where they need the large puzzle support even more so. And then there's a couple of other things related just to large puzzles in general, where if I select everything and then I press a button, my computer, which is not a shitty computer, basically freezes up and nothing happens. And right now, I imagine it's super busy doing things. There we go. That's how long it took to fill this in, right? And now this you see how things are getting suddenly very slow. And this puzzle, and if I look at the SVG here, here we go. This SVG now, if I say copy out HTML of this SVG, right? And we're pasting this in here, right? This is now 1.6 megabytes of code, right? And if we do this, and we'll make it quite small, this is the SVG data in there now, right? And that obviously isn't great. And it gets worse if you pencil mark it. So I would definitely need a better way. Let's see what undo does, right? And I haven't done research yet. I don't know how much of this is on the rendering, like the browser DOM, how much of that is my own code, right? My own, how it loops through things and so on. Maybe right now, because there's so many elements, some of the algorithms that check things like killer calculator or whatever suddenly slow things down. Like the slowdowns might be easily fixable, right? So probably what I want is I need to build something like a partial renderer. And kind of zoomed here, so kind of we'll make a section here with feature discussions. Feature discussion. So we have a large puzzle UI, right? So this is definitely one of the bigger features I want to bring in. And this versioning mechanism will be a good place to do that, because now I can say, hey, version 1.1, it's the big puzzle UI version, right? And that's exactly kind of what I want to accomplish as well with that. I want to use it as an excuse to push these features out that have been kind of hanging in there and so on. Yeah. Anyway, that's not actually... I'm getting sidetracked here. Let me close all these. So, a lot of this other stuff is to facilitate that, right? I used to publish features and build new features much more quickly, much more often. Now I'm spinning, kind of just keeping the balls in the air. So improving that, automating more of that, will help that. And I'm not saying I'm busy 24/7 doing this, but it takes away my mental capacities. It makes me stressed and anxious about making any changes. There's a whole bunch of other things that are happening at the moment, which I've constantly have to keep in consideration. Hey, Saren, how are you doing? So I'm not as free to just build new features. And I need to get back to being free to build new features. Another thing that I'm working on, and basically most of my income comes from right now, is educational tools for SudokuPad. So that's with Puzzle 9x9, and they've been very, very kind. And without them, probably SudokuPad today wouldn't exist, because I'm not earning enough from other sources. But the way things are in the US right now, that stuff isn't gonna work anymore. I'm not gonna get educational funding from the US going forward. That's very unlikely for building Sudoku tools, right? So that's a bit of a bummer, because I do enjoy it. I think Sudoku have a place in education. I feel like there's a lot of stuff I could do, like have a bit of an impact and things like that. Like, people having fun with puzzles is all great and good, but kids learning and being excited and exploring like mathematical things with Sudoku, that's really, really interesting to me. But I think I'll talk a little bit about the financial side of SudokuPad a little bit later, because it's a bit of a downer. So I want to make sure the hardcore community members will be there for that. So this is where we're kind of on the ops and maintenance side, mostly because that's things that people understand that they don't see. For example, there is an AI conference coming up, the NVIDIA RTC. It's a big AI conference. And some people contacted me and said, hey, we're using SudokuPad for some of our stuff, and we're going to demo something that links to the website. And your website might go down because of high traffic. So I actually set a second server up for them to hit, so at least it won't take our server down. But now I'm paying double, right? So there's things there I need to figure out. And these are all things the community doesn't really hear about. And it's not really, you know, but I definitely, like, there's stuff happening, there's stuff I'm doing. Yeah, so maybe let's talk about the app, right? So let's, these are all actually ops, let's call this ops, admin, and maintenance as a sort of, larger topic. And then we can just bring these in there. So we'll maybe move all this. Well, maybe that can go into admin and maintenance as well. So let's make a little bigger topic here. Oh, let's put these in square brackets, I think, or no, hash. I think that's how we do titles in Markdown. Shall we do that? We'll do that. And then we can do this here now. SudokuPad, mobile, and desktop app. I don't think you need the space, but it's probably more readable that way. Here we go. So, the app, right? I feel this is too big. The app. So we have iOS, we have Android, and I need to learn how to write smaller. And I have terrible handwriting. And we have Windows. I've done a prototype macOS app, and I feel very bad because somebody sponsored me a Mac computer to do Mac OS builds, and I still haven't built the Mac app for them. But that's should happen. One of the things that happened with this app, first of all, the app is built on an old technology. So current app issues. Actually, that should be a triple hash now, shouldn't it? So old tech stack based on Cordova. And Cordova was already not really maintained anymore when I used it. But now it's definitely, it's very tricky to use. And everything you find about it is things that aren't quite working and things that are problematic and so on and so forth. So I definitely need to move away from that. But I don't have the resources to I don't want to build a native separate app, right? So I have a experimental version I've built ages ago, based on Capacitor, which at the time, about a year and a half ago now, was a sort of a successor to Cordova and more maintained, but it might already be old now. So I need to be a bit careful, you know. And that's the sort of thing that needs a little bit of consideration, right? So I don't run into the same problems right away again. So I think it's here. Did I do a build? I think I saw a build folder here. Is that a build? Nope. Well, I have a test version here. So I need to build a new app, basically from the ground up, which isn't as scary as it might seem, because like 80% of the app is basically the website, right? The engine of the puzzle engine. But there's a bunch of things an app needs that a website doesn't need. So one of the main issues was that because of the way it was built in Cordova, the app was internally running just like a website. So I wasn't doing a lot of direct integration with the operating systems. The closest thing I was doing is the link handling, and that always has been problematic and never worked quite right. And as far as I could find, there isn't anything obvious that I can change into differently. It's just a system that isn't very well supported. But the big issue was that there's data loss on updates. And that is because of the way the operating systems handle the sort of browser-esque places where data is stored. Some of them just bring it over, and others say, oh, that's temporary, we're going to delete it, right? And I don't have any control over that. And I remember the first time I did an update, everybody lost their data, and it was a big problem. I then did a new version on Android, sort of to try it out, where I tried to fix that problem. And it fixed it for some people and didn't fix it for others. So that version, I never released the iOS app and the Steam app because it didn't work properly. Unfortunately, until I have a version where this is fixed, any update will break, like erase the user data, right? So this discouraged me, right? So this discouraged me from doing new releases because I didn't want to destroy people's data, right? And I put in quite a bit of work to build these versions, but this was ages ago now, 2 years plus ago, right? And the problem is, if I do this, it doesn't pay the rent, right? This is great for people who've already paid their $2, $3 for the app, of which, by the way, I get a very small fraction. And it doesn't actually encourage additional sales. And the app, because of the cut that CTC are taking, which is half, and then, the stores take about 30%, so I make about 20% of the money, right? A little bit more because it's 50% after the 30 have been taken. But it's basically not useful as an income. So I've put it on the back burner, right? I deprioritize that. So that I need to change, right? I need to change my arrangement with Cracking the Cryptic. I need to talk to them. I need to, the users deserve a better version. And the only way I can justify building a better version is if I get more of the income from that app. And if the app doesn't sell without their promotion, then it's not a business, right? Hopefully, people will support me by getting the app. Maybe I can promote it from the website itself. I have no idea how many of the sales right now are due to the CTC promotions of the app. But, they use my app every day. They get a lot of use out of it. They make a lot of money, and I make nothing of that, and I pay them a lot of money for it. So it's a problem. So what I need to do is I need to build a new version. I had considered building a second app, a SudokuPad 2. So I don't risk people losing their data again. But I think at this point now that the app is not working well for a while now, and I think it's okay. If I build a new app and I test it and it works well, I can justify doing a release, despite the data loss issue, right? So, app 2.0. That's weird, right? So, new tech stack. We're using capacitor.js, right? I also want to build a new interface for it that includes things that people have been asking for. I've always wanted to let people create folders and arrange puzzles and so on. But I actually want to build some of those features for the user interface into the web app as well. The web app is overdue to have something akin to user accounts and better ways of managing your puzzles and recording your data. To be honest, in an ideal world, the website itself would be a permanent app, something you can load puzzles in, save them to play offline on a flight, and you shouldn't have to even install an app, right? And I want to look into some of that as well. So potential integration with web app functionality, so we can maybe have the web app and the mobile app be a little bit more seamless. Oh, there's ways, I can just store the data in a file, right? Like if I write the data, like if I just take the data and write in a file and not, because internally it's just a website, so it's using local storage, but that local storage is considered to be temporary data by some of the browsers, or by some of the applications, right? But yeah, I also would love to have things like cloud saves, right? Cross platform access, right? So I want you to be able to play a puzzle on your phone and then sit down on your desktop and continue the puzzle, that kind of stuff, right? User accounts is something that's more important for the website, but it's a bigger project. So I don't know if it makes sense for me to build user accounts for the mobile apps. Like, I don't know if that work is small enough to justify doing that separately versus just building user accounts on the website side of things. Yeah, I mean, I can do it. It's just, it's also a question of finances, right? So if the app sells well enough, then adding offline access to the website is a bit difficult, right? Because then people saying, hey, why would I buy the app, right? If I have a, paid version of the website, then I can make the app free and integrate it with the website account system, right? Like, I don't know yet. It also is probably going to have, a puzzle store, but I think the puzzle store will not go to the app first. It'll go on the website first, or at the same time at the very least. But it's a functionality I wouldn't want to do for the app only. Like I think my community is too big. I have too many solvers on the website. These are things I need to figure out. Yeah, I'll look into all these things. To be honest, progress syncing, I think I might be able to without much security because there isn't really any user data integrated, right? I could literally just have the app ping my server with the progress data and some random number, and my server just says, okay, I'm gonna hold on to this progress data under this random number, right? And then the app can internally generate a link that the user can use to open that puzzle on their computer, and then the computer just says, hey, I want to continue the puzzle with this number, right? But, these are all sorts of things. Also, Google Drive is not something everybody has access to. It won't work on iOS, right? So I don't want to build 3 different things. I'd rather build one good thing, right? But it's going to have a new user interface, and the UI is something I've kind of partially worked on as part of other projects or other apps, right? It's probably going to be cross integration with website or web app, right? So I'd like to have something on the web app. I'd like you to be able to press a button and it'll give you a similar listing with screenshots of puzzles you've played in the past on your web browser, your past, like timings and so on, just like in the mobile app, right? But I'll these are all things I need to figure out. But I need to have sort of a baseline functionality, and I kind of will start over, right? And part of that will also be updating and improving the core engine to make this easier, because the original web app had to kind of hack the core engine a bit, and that slows down updates of the app, because now every time the website gets updated, if I want to reintegrate that new engine into the mobile app, I have to reapply all those hacks, right? So ideally, I could remove those hacks, change the flow of the web app to make it easier to integrate the core engine with the mobile app. Well, there's no depersonalization because there's no personal data, right? I have no usernames, no emails, no nothing like that, right? In the future, when I do, but that's what I'm saying. If I'm going to build a system, I'm going to build a proper system. I'm not going to build 3 quarter systems, and then all of them are problematic, right? And that's why the mobile app user accounts will probably wait till the website has user accounts. And then they'll have to be done properly, right? But I mean, for example, I've looked into something like Kinder as an authentication service, and it'll cost me like more than all my server costs right now just to run 10,000 users. And I currently have 40,000 daily users of the website, right? So, it needs to be a business model that's supported. And that's why, certain things that seem obvious, oh, why don't you have a login? Because I personally want to do it properly, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of sites, like Logic Master Germany, I'm not saying anything because I don't know anything about it, but I would be very surprised if they have a proper 100% compliant system today, because GDPR is so vague, it's probably impossible to actually comply with it properly. So doing things correctly and above board, nobody's really doing that. Anyway, so I don't want to dwell too long about that. Yeah, I mean, it's currently around on the 40K daily kind of range. Page views. Yeah, visitors. It's actually lower. It's about 33K. Okay. To be honest, like you saw, I had a bit of a dip halfway through the year in August, and I still don't understand how that happened. I have a suspicion it's some technical dip. I don't see why I would suddenly lose, 10 to 20% of my users. But, you know, this is another thing, you know, I don't have proper server-side logs, so I can't really confirm that some of this information, so I need to look into that, you know. And like, if this decline here, I mean, this still was going down, right? Now it's popping up a little bit, but that's not good, because I had a slow but steady growth for like 3 years before this. And I was kind of depending on that. And I don't know what happened around August. I talked to many people, nobody knows anything. So, I don't know. This user tracking, Plausible does not use cookies. It doesn't use any of that stuff, right? So it shouldn't really get blocked. But that's part of why I need to implement proper server-side logging. So at least have some basic numbers, like how many page views, even if I just had the page views, how many puzzles are getting loaded, because at least I can compare and say, okay, you know, this one says, I don't know, you know, yesterday, 66,000 page views. And I don't have a lot of pages outside of puzzles, right? So if my browser logs would actually be useful here. You know, so I'm kind of, sorry, my server logs, right? Right now I have logs, but they're just the output of my application. There's no actual sort of Apache-style web logs that I'm doing. And in the past, you know, 25 years ago, I used to do some very clever things with analyzing logs and doing, you know, user tracking myself without cookies and stuff like that. So, you know, there's some stuff I can do. But again, it takes time, right? And I'm always kind of working on something else. There's always something else that's more important. There's always something I'm running after, right? Let's put that here so we have some colorful to look at while I'm just chitter-chattering. All right. So yes, the app, you know, people have often asked, will this be a new app? Will they have to pay again? I don't think that's fair. I think this is definitely an upgrade I want to bring to the existing user base. But, for example, another thing I'm not sure is I'd love for people to pay once and get access to all the apps. So let's have a bit of a chit-chat about monetization. So, for example, I would like to be able to... let me summarize right now. People probably don't know what the sources of income are, right? So I have app sales currently, where I get 50% after 50% goes to CTC, after the 30% to how would that work out? If you take 30 away, you end up with 70. 50% of 70 is 35, right? So it's 30% to App Store, right? Then 35 goes to CTC. We have a little bit of vertical space. I think we can do this. 35% to Sven, right? That's for the app sales. And currently, I think Apple Store just shut me down. And I think it's because I haven't updated the app in so long. So currently, Apple Store is shut off. And I don't get paid, I think, for the other two. And not getting paid for the others due to admin issues. Because I'm behind on some paperwork I need to do. And it's very difficult for me to do admin paperwork. So currently, basically, I have no income from the app. So what else do I have? I have around 500 euros per month from Patreon, which I'm very, very grateful for. And I definitely need to do more for Patreon. So let me do that as well. Patreon plans. We'll get to that in a little bit, right? Yeah. So what else do I have? And I think that's pretty much it. There's Patreon. There is... I used to occasionally get Ko-fis, but not really anything significantly. So, you know, average over the months, basically nothing. In the past, I've done some side work, but basically when I get another job, nothing happens in SudokuPad. So either I do that or I don't do that. I'll basically have to get back to that when my funding runs out here. And educational funding from you for project 9x9. And that's kind of what I have been directing a lot of my efforts to support them, because they're supporting me. Without them, SudokuPad as it is right now wouldn't exist, wouldn't operate. And that was their goal. Their goal was basically to say, hey, you know, we like what you're doing. We want you to be able to do it. But I think they were also hoping that this was just support and that the site itself would, as I develop it, be able to provide its own income. And that hasn't really happened. Maybe part of it is my own fault. You know, I haven't pursued monetization. I have talked to some people regarding advertising. People have been promising me, oh, we can get 27,000 euros per month for your website. Yeah, except they want 6 ads on screen at all times and things like that, which I don't feel like doing. Oh yes, and I get some support from Artisanal. So 4 days a month, I put 4 or 5 days a month. I think it's close to 5. I have a promo for Artisanal Sudoku, and they pay, and James Sinclair pays me kindly for it, and that's basically the other significant income. It's less than the Patreon income, so it's, again, it's none of these pay rent, none of these cover any kind of living expenses or anything like that. So that's kind of part of the problem, is that I'm making more money than nothing, but more in line with more in line with a hobby project, not a full-time developer, right? So it's not really sustainable as it is. I'm glad I got. I'm happy I got as far as I have, and I didn't expect to get this far. I'll be honest, right? And I think that's it for now. Obviously, the Clemson funding will dry up in June, and I don't know when. You know, we've been applying for grants and stuff, but now, you know, everything is in freaking chaos. So thanks for that, Trump. So I'll have to figure something out. So Patreon plans. I'm really appreciative of my Patreons, but it hasn't grown. It has basically stayed steady for like 2 years straight. And it's part of it is my own fault. I can probably grow it if I push it more, but I also feel uncomfortable pushing it more until I have more to offer. So I definitely want to start introducing regular updates. Like, I want Patreon to be a place. It's already a place for sort of my hardcore supporters, but I want it to be a place where the hardcore supporters kind of get what they probably want, you know, which is direct communication with me, updates, and kind of learning about new features, getting their voice heard and things like that. I've had polls with them about features to build, but my follow-up has been atrocious. And I really appreciate their support, but I feel like I need to do better. And once I do, I bet I can move the needle on that, because it's been 500 a month for maybe a year and a half straight. And, you know, I'm glad it hasn't gone down, but it hasn't gone up yet. And it got there relatively quickly from being much, much lower. So that rise, that support, has slowed down a lot. And a lot of the Patreon supporters that support me the most are people that have supported me from the start. And they have supported me with a outsized fraction of the financial funding. You know, people like Bremster, people like, you know, Waffles the dog. Like, a couple of people have been pushing, you know, 50 euros per month. And then Bremster even did additional funding. And then they're basically paying for everything that everybody else is using for free. And I personally, again, I don't feel comfortable with that. So I want to use this as, I want to start posting regular updates. And this, again, goes hand in hand with what we spoke about earlier, with our regular releases on a schedule. So let's say if I do a point release once a month or every other month, it could go hand in hand with a post on on Patreon, and maybe more than one. So there might be a post about planning the thing, pre-release, hey, what needs testing and so on, and then post-release, what's going on, right? And I'd like to post like at least monthly, but maybe bi-weekly or something like that, every other week, right? I want to give access in a more structured way. I've done some basic polls in the past, but for example, I haven't followed up well on building features that patrons, that I offered Patreon. You know, it's not like they asked me for it. I told them, hey, vote on a feature, right? And then I want to be able to follow through and say, okay, this is where it's at. This is what I've built. This is where we are now. Do you want testing? Final feedback? Any last changes? And release, right? So I want to have Patreon features. I want features that specifically go, you know, maybe a choice of a couple of features, and then patrons can vote on those, and then those follow through. So Patreon voting on new features with follow through and release, right? So it's important that I don't just ask for them to vote. It's important that I then have a plan that, okay, the vote happened, I'll work out the details, I publish a post in a week, I'll build a prototype, I publish some visuals, some screenshots a week later, I'll have a test version on alpha or beta 2 weeks later, final feedback from the thing, and then it gets released, you know, that kind of thing. Hey, Eliza. Yeah, I've been thinking about that as well, and part of me was thinking, I don't. No, Alexa, shut up. Sorry, Eliza, not Alexa. Excuse me. I've been thinking about this, and students, I'm very uncomfortable actually even charging, because I want more people to have more access. Alexa, shut up. So I was thinking more about things like the services for the educators, and even them, I would like to encourage them, and I want to help them to kind of spread the word, and right. So I was wondering if it might make more sense to have sort of a university-wide site license, you know. So instead of charging, I don't know, €5 a month for, or €50 a year to a teacher, maybe it'll be better if I charge something, you know, a couple of $100 a month or a year or something like that to a whole university with unlimited access for all their stuff. And then maybe they can justify it a bit more, you know, have a big bundle. They don't have to worry about how many teachers they have accessing it and things like that. And then, you know, I don't need that much money, right? If I have 5 universities supporting this, then maybe that's enough money to kind of support it, build the features, administer it, and all that sort of thing. But that's something to be discussed. Like, I don't know what the internals are. I don't know how hard it is to get certain kinds of funding from universities, right? So maybe let's have a yeah, licensing. It's something I've always been thinking about and planning for, but I don't have any concrete use cases for that right now where I say, well, these are use cases, but I haven't got an example of it already working. So it's something that I hope will work one day, but I don't know how and when, right? All right, so besides the Patreon voting, I also want to I want to use Patreon as a early, not like user accounts, but there's some additional services I want to offer, paid services. And I think initially I can offer them through Patreon. So I have I want to have a SudokuPad Pro plan for YouTubers and streamers and things like that, where they get access to certain kinds of features, things that need API access, maybe access to information from the database, things like that, right? So I want to have SudokuPad Pro tier with API access and other features, right? So any features that require server support. So for example, I have tools that can be used for streaming, for multiplayer things that would be useful for streamers and not as useful for regular solvers. And that take effort and time on my side, right? Those features are all very rough and they're just prototypes and things like that. But if I can turn this into something where I have a few people that are really supportive, you know, they're paying $20 a month, there's 5 or 10 people, then I can justify putting in the effort and saying, okay, I'm going to polish this up. I'm creating user interfaces for these. I give you backend access. I give you API keys so you can use it and things like that. Oh yeah, I'm definitely I'm working with James on something according to that. But I will be building that based on the website, right? So the idea is originally I was working on actual separate paid app. And to be honest, even from the very beginning, I always wanted to do like an adventure-based like type style app where the puzzles are kind of steps along an adventure. Um, so yeah, but I want to scale this back a bit. I want to, and I've got sort of a sample test back already working. That's part of the user interface work I want to do for the app. It'll actually be used for that first. So there, and it'll be my, it'll be a lot of work mostly because I'm not familiar with online commerce stuff. And it scares me a little bit, but I'd like to work that out. I'd like to have a way for setters to be able to sell puzzles. And the idea would be that somebody can, kind of set up the puzzle. They can get a couple of setters in on the deal with them to build the puzzles. And they can sort of publish a puzzle pack onto this. And it won't be like internal stuff working out with, the way I think Crack the Cryptic do it. They can't purchase the puzzles. I want to have kind of a shared payout system, right? I want people to be able to long-term benefit from that. Yeah, to be honest, though, the whole for-profit things at universities, I don't, but it's up. That's something we'll have to figure out, right? I'd like to give as much access as possible. We'll see how it goes. Maybe let's do a little subsection monetization future, paid white label versions or other websites. So that's something I've always was interested in. Hey, why can't the New York Times use my user interface for their puzzles? Licensed services for educators and / or universities, right? What else did we mention? Oh yes, puzzle store or setters and packs. Yikes. So the part of why I stayed away from setting tools, it's always been part of the plan, and if you go back in these videos, you'll see me working on it, is that if I'm going to do a setting tool, I wanted SudokuPad setting to be similar to SudokuPad for solving. So it would have to be a high quality experience, which makes it a lot more difficult to build. I want to have an easy to use user interface, no technical mumbo jumbo, etc. Right? And the user case for that is relatively small. The effort is quite high, but the number of users, there's a lot fewer setters, right, than there are solvers. And I have 40,000 solvers, and I don't know, maybe 1,000 setters or something. If I look at the weekly stats, right, we have 1,100 new puzzles. Okay, I don't know exactly by how many unique authors, but considering that a lot of these authors publish more than 10 puzzles, probably less than 100 authors, right? So there's probably around 100 people actively setting new puzzles each week, which is not nothing, right? But it's much fewer than the 40,000 solvers. Now, I feel like Sudoku Maker has done a great job, but like I don't really want to step onto their feet. There's already these tools that exist. Part of me really wants to, if anything, support those tools better, right? Create better APIs. I would like to open source some aspects of SudokuPad so they can use the rendering engine, that they, document things better, right? So to make interoperability more powerful. I have some starts of some simple tools for setting that I'm working on. But I also don't want to take away the reason for existence for some of these other tools, right? Because they bring in innovation, right? If it's just me and I'm busy with something else, new features won't happen, new ideas won't get implemented. While if it's an open source tool, it's more likely people will tinker with it and it'll evolve more quickly, right? And without these new features, we won't get new exciting puzzles. So there's a bit of a, I feel like there's a little bit of of a consideration I have to make for kind of the ecosystem. And I feel like as having a sort of loud voice, I don't like to use it very often. So I don't want to push things out there. You know, I could say what a feature is called, or what I could impose the name of a constraint. I could impose what constraints are possible, right? But I try to do as little of that as possible because I'm not the creative head to come up with this stuff. So let's see. For Patreon, I'd like to kind of structure it better, but I also don't want to spend too, like, I don't want to, I don't think I can make the whole thing work just through Patreon support. So I don't want to make it a full-time occupation to tweak my Patreon tiers and fiddle with that stuff, right? I think the Patreon is for people who really want me to support me, and it's already there. But I also want to make it a little bit more easily accessible. So people like those AI guys who I just started up a new server for, they should at least be a 20 euros a month or 50 euros a month Patreons if they're going to use my service that much for their own multi-million-dollar business, right? Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Chameleon has a good way of doing that, but I do have some some ideas for that. I have user plugins. I want to definitely have a sort of playground setup, where puzzles themselves can include not exactly code, but something like that, So there might be a way of kind of like a code pen or some of those online coding sites where you can kind of implement some code and share it with friends, but it's not exposing everybody to a danger of somebody building a puzzle virus, basically, And obviously, a lot of this other stuff is all about improving the speed at which I can build new features. And that alone will solve a lot of these problems, because if I can make new features more quickly, then you can just suggest a new feature and I can build it, right, more easily, and we don't have to wait so long. All right, so that's some Patreon plans here. Yeah, I have not prepared well enough for this, but I have thought about this before. I have lists somewhere. I have to kind of figure these things out, right? Part of it also, I think I need to kind of organize myself a little bit where I publish things. Like I should have a blog where I can post things about new releases. I have started my own Discord. I want to set it up. In fact, I was thinking of having this Discord for Patreons as a place where people can directly talk to me with requests, suggestions, problems. Right now it happens in all sorts of private chats and so on. But it would be nice to have a Discord where I have things like a channel specifically for technical issue reporting or for updating progress on a particular feature. There's features right now that people don't know what's going on. Some of them are experimental. Some of them are only on beta. Like the large puzzle UI, it's there in experimental, but I'm not getting any feedback because people don't realize it's there, and they're not realizing I'm looking for feedback before I take it further, So the Patreon Discord will be for reporting issues, making suggestions and requests, discussing SudokuPad specific matters. So, it could be a good place for people to talk about what is a good implementation, why this is more important than that, how color should be managed, what is this touch issue on mobiles or whatever, right? I don't really want to have my own full-on puzzle server. I don't have the bandwidth to manage that, and there's bigger, better servers already out there. Like, I don't want to have another Puzzle Plaza or anything like that. But I think a channel, a fairly small, narrow Discord that's kind of focusing specifically on places, like I want to be able to have a bot that just automatically updates if there's a new release. I would like to have a place where I just have a weekly, like a channel that's read-only, where I publish once a week my plan for the week or the things I'm working on, things like that, right? Without all the, the off-topic and the jokes channel and all this other stuff, right? Not a social channel, if you know what I mean. And part of it, maybe it's Patreon only, maybe it includes the free patrons. I don't know yet. I'll look into it. And it might be a place where I can also automate some things, you know, where there could be some bot interactions where I could have bots running tools where people can post things with puzzles and, you know, get some information from the database and things like that. All right. Do I want to get to the feature discussion yet? I mean, this is supposed to be the future of SudokuPad. We've talked a little bit, quite a bit about the past as well here. I've had plans, very specific plans at the beginning of the year, and I haven't really been keeping up. I've been wanting to get into making videos. I've been wanting to get to stream more often, so a lot of these things haven't happened. This year, I definitely need to do the replacement app. I don't know yet how much time it will take. It took me, I think I was thinking about 3 months originally, and it took me more than 6. I don't know if it'll be faster. It might be slower. Part of it, you know, part of me thinks it should be faster since I've solved a lot of the problems in the past, but since I want to build a new interface and a better one, and I'm aware of more problems that I need to solve, like this time, I can't just release it. This time I need to know certain things work. I don't know yet. And it's not my comfort zone. I like things that I'm very familiar with, and all the native programming and app stuff, a lot of it is very on shaky grounds. You know, a lot of the times you do hours and hours of research and you conclude that nobody knows how to do it, or that your case has never been seen before by anybody. So it's kind of a bit annoying. I want to I'd love to get into more regular streaming, you know, besides the sort of code hangouts, which I want to keep as a sort of weekly feature on the Sunday slot. But I'd like to have additional just work streams. I mean, code hangout mostly is a work stream, but I always try to make it a little bit special and a little bit extra, not just continuing what I'm currently working on. But I'd like to have some regular sessions during the week, early in my day, where maybe nobody else is watching, just sort of for body doubling purposes. In the past, I used to stream like 10 hours a day, and it was just my work day, and I enjoyed that. Let us think about, I don't really want to get into the feature discussion just yet, because, you know, everybody has features we want to talk about and things like that. But I would like to talk a little bit more about the big picture stuff. Let's keep the feature discussion here. Let's rename this to major new features, right? So okay, let's make a list a little bit. We want to have the large puzzle UI. We want to have, like, I definitely want to do more with user count stuff and so on and so forth. So puzzle packs. So I want to have multi-puzzle support as a native sort of data type, right? I've started that work ages ago, and I need to continue that. And that'll be part of the commercial side of things as well. So the real big thing, okay, and I think that's what I'm realizing that's what this whole thing was supposed to be about. And I'm gonna put that here, and it's gonna be the next big major point. And it's gonna be about publishing. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit more about, let's finish this section. There's a couple of major features I've been working on. Streaming tools is one of those. Multi-solver support, right? We have that kind of stuff going on. Let me think. Puzzle pack, streaming tools, multi-solver support. Let's actually pop up one of our sites where I look into these. SudokuPad 2025. Let me refresh what I put on there. Okay, so we have the pack shop here, mobile app updates. Oh, you see they're all here. Solve stats, right? Solve stats. So, you know, I want you to be able to see what you've done in the past, you know. Oh my God, I worked on this fog effect. Did I ever? I think it's, you see, it's probably released just as an experimental thing. Serve API, 26-letter support. So multi-digit, like these are all features that are partially implemented somewhere. I think one of these untitled files actually is probably multi-digit. So, you know, might as well have those. Letter input on mobile. Like these are all not really big features, but things that are long time coming, right? So let's see what else. All right, so this is kind of a quick list on some sort of bigger things that popped to my head right now. So let's talk about puzzle publishing. So this is, I think, the next sort of major step for SudokuPad. And I think it's so major, I'm actually gonna use a different color and I'm gonna write it here. Right? And what do I mean by puzzle publishing? So right now I have a database of about 220,000 pieces of data and around 65,000 unique combinations of author names and titles. But which of those are actual puzzles, I don't actually know. A lot of those are in progress things. Some of them are blank grids. Some of them are just a dick drawn with a line, you know. And in the past, that hasn't been a big problem. And the reason for that is that there is nowhere on my website where you can go to see a bunch of puzzles, right? 1 second. I'm going to check because my restream is currently frozen. And YouTube also seems to be frozen. Let me refresh my restream and see if that fixes that. Can you let me know if the video is working for you? All right, restream is unfrozen. YouTube, not unfrozen, it's just behind. Okay, here we go. Awesome. So, puzzle publishing. The idea is, and the other thing is right now, is that I have no association with the puzzles to real people. I have an author label, but other than that, you know, anybody can pretend to be anybody, right? Somebody can post a puzzle, pretend it's Systemaful, and I would never know the difference, right? And I don't really have a good way of getting enough rights to be able to show that puzzle on a list. Like, I'd like to have a list of top 10 puzzles of the day, but I don't feel comfortable doing this at this stage with the level that the data is at. And to transition from how it is now, I feel like I almost need to clean break. Like, I don't think I can. I mean, over time, maybe. Like, I'm probably confident that there's certain puzzles that I can talk to the person where I know them personally. I have lots of personal information that makes me confident that I know that person owns that puzzle and let them give me the rights to put that puzzle in a search result or on a homepage or on a recommended puzzles listing or something like that, right? So, but puzzles, I feel like I need a separate process where people can publish a puzzle deliberately with additional information, such as, you know, the rights for me to show that puzzle on a listing. Because like for example, a lot of these puzzles might be paid puzzles, somebody's Patreon puzzles. So if I put them just in a search engine, you know, that's not really great. I don't know anything about it, and I don't see, you know, people will get mad at me for it, but like, it's not really a terrible thing. But I personally don't want to do it, right? I want to do the best possible I can. So one of the things we need an explicit process to submit a puzzle with attribution license etc, right? So I need to have nope. Wait, what is control? Nope. Yeah. License. So I need people to be able to say, hey, I check this box that you can show this in a search result, or no, this is a commercial puzzle behind a paywall, don't show it to anybody. Things like that, right? I'm okay with this puzzle being in a YouTube video, not necessarily mine, right? Like, I would like to have a place where YouTubers can go and just look for puzzles, right? Anyway, lots of things like that. So we need an explicit process. We want additional metadata. So I want them to be able to provide a whole bunch of extra things, such as description, like a lore, a flavor text, right? Additional attributions testers, co-authors. Like, I would like people to be able to just say, hey, you know, there's a list of testers, or this is a very large puzzle that was made by 10 different people, etc., right? I think that makes sense. Yeah, author notes. Hints. Solve path. Actually, I think this wouldn't even be like a solve path. You know, the sort of things that YouTubers ask for, right? Things like that, right? Yeah, that would be your lore flavor text. It would also probably have, and some of this might be automated. You know, some of it would be you know, kind of extracted and then offered to the setter for editing, etc. I also want to have things like, if you're creating a puzzle and you're generating 10, 20 different versions, I want them to be all connected, sort of a history, like setting history, linked in progress puzzles, right? So you're not really publishing one specific set of data, you're publishing a puzzle that contains potentially multiple puzzles as part of that package. You know, external links. So this is something I want to, you know, I want setters to be able to link to their page, right? Homepage, profile, YouTube, etc., right? If somebody creates a puzzle, even if they're not selling it, even if they're not paying me anything, even if they're not a Patreon, the least they can get for that is to be able to promote something they want to promote on their puzzle. And currently I don't accept that because I don't have a way of confirming that the link is safe, that the data is good, that, you know, that it's not a prank, etc., etc., right? So part of the publishing process has to be, because I know who the setter is, because I have an account, because there's a recourse, they can put in a link. Now, probably what will happen is that they can't put in an arbitrary link, but that they will link things like, as part of their profile, they can have like a homepage, and that gets automatically linked from their, you know, setter name on their puzzles, on their published puzzles. Not that they can just put in whatever link they want. But it might include things like, oh, can you put in Logic Masters Germany link there? And it'll pull that link, check if the puzzle links to SudokuPad, and then, you know, kind of verify it. Things like that, right? Make it safe, stuff like that. It will also maybe additional artwork, right? So maybe there's a cover image, right? Maybe there is a visual background that is too big for normal puzzles, but as part of the publishing process, you can put like a header image or something, or an icon, I don't know, right? It might generate a thumbnail for you, but you can edit the thumbnail. You can put a smiley face on it if you like, or something like that, right? And this is something I want to work out in detail. Like this, I think this is a really important next step for SudokuPad. And there will be probably something like a, let me write this here as well. So kind of published puzzle use cases, right? So we'll have a /random page with a new puzzle on each load. So that'll be probably the first thing I'll do, is I'll make a /random, and at the end of a puzzle that will get linked to from the puzzle you've solved, and it'll say, hey, you like this puzzle? Here's some other puzzle, right? And there won't be any algorithmic thing. It'll just be a list of the published puzzles. And that list will be initially very, very small, but it's a way of you know, promoting the existence of this process to the community. And then people, you know, hopefully setters will say, hey, I want my puzzle to be on that list. I'd like to have my puzzle played by more people. And I'd like to be able to show, hey, if you publish your puzzle, you'll get 100 times more players than if you don't publish your puzzle, etc., right? But obviously, you know, that's just kind of initially, right? But then down the line, and I'm just realizing, okay, no, I'm not cutting things off. Down the line, we'll probably have a search, puzzle search, by features. Ratings and difficulty, things like that. So you should be able to say, hey, I want puzzles like this, blah, blah, blah. And maybe in the future we'll have, maybe I'll have one day algorithmic feeds. I don't know. We want to have channels similar to YouTube for setters, YouTubers, right? So I'd like to have a channel, /CTC, where there's a list of all CTC puzzles that they play on their YouTube channel, right? /ranks, /Bremster, all the puzzles. They're not necessarily puzzles by them, right? But it's just a collection of the puzzles that appear on that YouTube channel with links to the videos, etc. But there can also be a /Festomophil channel with all the puzzles by Festomophil, right? And you should be able to subscribe to your channels, right? Subscription page for solvers, right? So you should be able to have a page where you subscribe to channels, and it'll give you the list of new puzzles and maybe notifications when there's a new puzzle out, etc. Right? Let's speak a little bit more about the process, right? Part of what I'm working on with Eliza and missing a full deck and missing a few cards and project number 9 and the educational stuff is we're doing some research currently on a puzzle comparison system where we can measure similarity between puzzles. And the ultimate use case of that will be a YouTubers. What does it want to correct that to? Capitalization? YouTubers. I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess we can capitalize that. And it probably doesn't like the U and flavor. I guess I have a US setting here. So basically, that will be part of a plagiarism system for university courses that teach puzzle setting, where people submit puzzles. But I feel like I have the same problem once I have a explicit publishing setup. Again, currently there isn't a lot of incentive for people to fake a author name, right? They might want to submit a puzzle as if it's a Festomophil to CTC in the hope it gets on the video, but there isn't a lot of incentive to do so. But with the publishing system, I want to specifically exclude that possibility. If especially in the future, if there's ever a commercial result on that, if people might earn money from publishing puzzles because maybe I have a premium subscription that people get certain kinds of puzzle or whatever, right? I don't want to have to worry about people just copying puzzles and all things like that, right? So part of the publishing process will be a check of existence of that puzzle, right? And it'll currently be mostly based on my database, but it might even have some markers. It might have a flag. If the username, for example, the author name, you might not be able to publish things on your account except for a specific set of predefined authors, right? So you create your account, you can create, I don't know, 5 different authors, but you cannot create a Festomophil author name, if that name is already taken somewhere else. Things like that, right? So it could go beyond the puzzle. It could say, yes, you have a user, but you also have author names, and those author names they need to be unique, right? You cannot use somebody else's author name, things like that. So we'll have a I'm not gonna call it plagiarism, duplication check. So it'll check not just exact duplications, but it'll potentially flag things for moderation, maybe by me. This will start slowly. So initially, maybe it'll be a very limited number of publishers that I accept, maybe 100, right? And maybe I'll have to see how many we have 1,000 puzzles coming through here. We have 1,000 puzzles coming through here in a week, but they probably won't all be published, right? We'll probably have a bunch of nameless Sudokus, right? So like 440 are gone. 60, so it's 500 puzzles of these 2,500, already excluded. And maybe it's a full 1,000 puzzles of actual puzzles, but we'll have to deal with that. Not everybody will want to publish them. Some of them will be just somebody's first time trying it out and things like that. But we definitely want a duplication check. We want to have a moderation system. I want people to be able to report something. I won't necessarily be able to look at every puzzle visually. So if some puzzle has a naughty drawing and line art on it and people don't like it, I need people to be able to report that, and I need to be able to kind of do something about that. And probably what will happen is that there will be a sort of, what's the word? Like a system to say, okay, how trustworthy is that author, right? So a brand new author, their puzzles will only get shown initially until they've had a certain number of solves to, you know, the sort of inner circle of solvers. And if they've been solved 100 times without any reports, it goes to everybody. Things like that, right? Or if somebody has been setting, you know, had 1,000 solves on their puzzles and never had a report, then all their puzzles immediately go to, you know. So if somebody just wants to make a sort of, and if somebody who has been publishing puzzles without any problem forever now decides to make a silly joke and put, I don't know, and not something naughty in their puzzle that upsets a lot of people, maybe they'll have their rating kind of reduced, and you know, have to have a word with them. We'll see how it goes, right? Well, that's kind of why I want to have additional metadata, such as multiple solvers, co-authorship, and so on and so forth, right? So it's not going to be just a string like it is currently, you know. The whole author thing of these published puzzles will probably be a little bit smarter than that, right? So the puzzles might have to go through a moderation pipeline, right? Maybe they don't just go through. Maybe there'll be a set of volunteer moderators that have to solve a puzzle once and click OK, you know, make sure the puzzle's of sufficient quality, etc., right? Again, maybe there'll be exceptions to it. Maybe it's part of the publishing system. Maybe a publisher could say, yes, this is a very hard puzzle, or I'd like to bypass the moderation pipeline, or it's urgent because I need to use it in a video or something like that, right? So there'll probably be methods to do things. You know, kind of feedback and reporting mechanism for solvers, right? And we want to collect feedback. We want to have, did I write stats, setting history in progress? Did I not write statistics somewhere? Stats. Okay, yeah, that's for solvers. But here, for the setter, I want to have puzzle statistics and analytics. So that's something I think that's a big deal for setters, that they get information about their puzzle, how it works, you know, that kind of stuff. 1 second, let me just check something on the stream. I don't know why. Yeah, I think YouTube complains when my bitrate is below a certain amount, and then Twitch complains when it's above a certain amount. So I don't think there's a single bitrate I can use that both of them like. All right, at least YouTube still thinks I have a decent connection, but only 4 viewers. And anybody? What? Nobody. One person watching on Twitch. All right. Well, I wish there was more viewers today, because it'd be nice to get some feedback on what people are wondering about. All right. So this publishing system, I think this is kind of the biggest thing, the most important change I'm going to do to SudokuPad in a long time. And it's going to be the first step. I think I can do this before user accounts even, because it's on the setter side, and there'll be potentially accounts for setters, but it's a much smaller number of people, and I kind of can manage that directly. Yeah. And the publishing system will be also my test run on user accounts, right? So if I can build it's kind of like if I can build a user accounts for 10 to 50 setters, then I can work out all the issues, learn, you know, in a controlled environment before I unleash it to 40,000 people, right? Because ultimately I'd like to have, yeah, and then the next step will be sort of the, you know, the kind of, I don't know if it'll be like Patreon only or like a paid setup or something, but it'll be something to a small number, you know, the 10% of solvers, right? And then eventually for every solver, everybody should have a free account and be able to track their stats and all this stuff. And whatever happens in local storage right now will basically be part of their sort of implicit free account. And I'd love to have it in a way that people don't have to sign in with emails and usernames and PPI and all this sort of stuff. I'll figure something out. In the past, I was thinking like if they literally generate a ID on their computer and use that ID to push data to the server and pull it away, you know, from for a cloud saves and things like that. Then there's no PPI, there's no cookies, there's no logins, you know, and they get most of the features. So maybe something like that. But anyway, the publishing part of this will be kind of the step in that direction, right? And I can even, I don't even need setter accounts. I could literally like have people just fill out a form and send me the puzzle or tell me the puzzle and I can figure it out, right? In the moment, it could be as easy as putting the puzzle on a list, right? And like, a database and say, hey, these puzzles are known good puzzles, and they go into that random page, and then we'll take it from there, But yes, the duplication check is going to be part of that. And I don't think I can do it without that. I think the moment there's a benefit, even if it's in terms of getting your puzzle in front of an audience, the shenanigans will start, right? And it might involve, things like, hey, do I want to go to an SQL database? Do I want to change how things are? Do I want to have a second server for some of this data? Because right now, the database, I'm not very happy with it. It's a MongoDB database. It's not really that much data, but somehow it's huge and it's clunky and it takes me forever to download it and all this stuff. And the data shouldn't be that big. I mean, it doesn't help that I'm storing the data in 10 different ways. I store the original compressed data. I store the decompressed string. I store the JSON decoding of that string. So, a lot of wasted space. But I just, again, it's part of the admin and ops stuff. I need to spend some time to clean it up and take it from this preliminary form that it is now into something more final. All right. Yeah, I think that's kind of some of the main features. I'm starting to feel my throat go. I feel like I've been talking a lot. So I'm going to try to maybe collect some feedback now. Yeah, last 100 episodes ago, we did a tour of the features of the puzzle. And I think it was like 3 or 4 hours. And I always had hope to turn that into some small videos about those features, but that never happened. But it's definitely something I'd like to look into as well in the future. Like, I'd like to do videos on new features or how to do a certain thing. Or maybe even have, maybe have guest hosts. Maybe have somebody else who wants to do a video about something like that, about a feature they care about, explaining it. I don't know. But like, yeah, it's not sexy. It's not like the puzzles themselves. Nobody wants to talk about how to change the colors or whatever, right? Although Ranks, I think he's done quite a few videos on how to use SudokuPad and kind of parts of it and all that sort of thing. But yeah, that's kind of one of the other things I want to look into. And I'd like to, maybe I'll go through this video afterwards and maybe not exactly use things from it, but kind of do something with these things, even if it's just publishing it somewhere. That's kind of what I've been talking about as well. Like I've been working towards kind of creating some pages, kind of like the stats page here. Again, these pages, people don't really know about them. So I need to have a structure to the website, overhaul the home page. Yeah, maybe let's do a section on that. Yeah. So, SudokuPad content. So, new home page. That's actually useful. Links to existing and new pages. Pages such as stats, media appearances, Puzzle Hall of Fame. Again, publishing will aid with the Puzzle Hall of Fame page. I think if I go onto demos, here we go, Hall of Fame. Do I have the other pages here? Media appearances, user flow dashboard. Okay. Accounts, user interface. I made some notes here. The list. Big change in 2024. It is a new year. User accounts didn't happen. Ads was a total failure. Community promos also haven't happened. Community promos, yeah. So the community promos was the idea of using the promo spot for things like, if somebody's making a nice video series about how to do certain things, or or has a like a charity fundraiser or things like that, right? Like nonprofit causes that I want, puzzle-related causes that I want to support, right? Let's put these here as well. So stats, media appearances, Puzzle Hall of Fame. There's a whole bunch of things I want to collect information for. Things like applying for, submitting community promos, applying as a tester, you know, things like that. Application forms, tester, and oh yeah, puzzle publishing. I also want to give access to actually registered testers, right? Registered tester access. So I want people to be able to apply as testers. So you don't need to necessarily test a puzzle with your own testers, but people in the community can test your puzzles in a semi-automated process, right? Puzzle tester, SudokuPad tester, community promo. Like somebody wants to, you know, submit to a community promo, things like that, right? How to express this? Because I've had words from, you know, those AI guys like, oh, that'd be great if they had a set of puzzles that are rights clear to use for certain things. Educational, you know, we need data of playthroughs, right? We want to collect that, so it would be nice if people could submit those, right? Replay data collection submission, other puzzle collection submissions, you know, things like that, like some quite generically. So what happened to the music? What's sponsored? Feels like I'm in a silent ad. The heck? I'm on a YouTube. No, I'm somehow signed out of my YouTube Premium account. What the heck happened? I didn't hear. Did you guys hear an ad or something? Felt like it was playing an ad. Paying for Premium for a reason. All right, am I logged in now? I get to the next. All right, we're back in it. I think. I hope. I hope this doesn't knock me out of the live streaming. This happened to me so often, where it logs me out in the middle of the stream, and I don't know why. All right, I think. Yeah, not in the stream, on my music playlist. All right, I think we're back. Yeah, I'd love to get to monetization, but I need to double my view hours, so I need to get more viewers. And part of that is, you know, I need to promote things more and kind of push my own agenda on the site, you know. That's something, that's one of the features I want to do, actually. I want to have a real-time promo. So I want to be able to say, hey, I go live on stream, press a button on my dashboard, and now if you solve a puzzle 5 minutes later, you might actually get a promo at the end of the puzzle that I'm live streaming right now, and if you want to check it out. So, you know, such as a live stream notification. I guess those don't supposed to have spaces in them. Yeah, we definitely want a wiki for puzzle terms, constraints, and so on, right? So I've shied away from being a single source of truth for puzzle-related things, but I think I owe it to my users, especially the less experienced and less technical ones, to at least have a reservoir of all the basic terminology. What's a German whisper? You know, here's an example, etc., right? And hopefully links to community stuff, such as here's Bremster's video on how to do this sort of thing. You know, here's a CTC video of a famous puzzle that uses that constraint. You know, things like that. Yeah, that's, you know, part of the sort of channel and the publishing is like, hey, if somebody does puzzles that teach certain things, then there should be a category that they can check. In fact, let's add that, right? Categories, tags, category tags, and other extra details. Is the puzzle educational? Does this is it themed? Is it a gift or dedication? So lots of things like that. Like, it's this, you know, there were some puzzles from Secret Santas and things like that with my name in it or SudokuPad in it, and there's lots of other puzzles like that. So it would be great if, when publishing a puzzle, you could check a couple of boxes and you could say, hey, this puzzle is actually a dedication, or this puzzle was for a specific event, or this puzzle is a joke on this, or, you know. So just for categorization, and maybe those puzzles will then go on certain pages, you know. What else do I have here? Demos index. Yeah, so we want to have log or development progress. Announcements for features, milestones, requests for testing, etc. Like, it would be great if I could say, hey, I need help testing a feature or a certain thing, or there's a bug on a device I don't have, if anybody knows anything about it, you know. Sometimes I hear like one report about a thing and it's obscure and I'm like, okay, there's nothing I can do. And then somehow later I find out that lots of people had that problem, but nobody said anything because they assumed I already knew about all of that, right? So that's something I need to improve. You know, there are resources like the community there, and this feels like a waste. Like, we can utilize that community power better when people already when it's already there, when it's not even anybody doing any additional work, right? We need a better documentation of features, settings, and features and settings. That's kind of for the setter side, but we also want to have technical specs, file formats, etc. You know, we have already a whole bunch of stuff besides the puzzle formats, you know, like the color palette, or the color palette. We have the replay data. We have other things that can be shared. I don't even know right now. You know, how does the GIF generate? How, you know, what are the outputs of the screenshot tool? You know, and a lot of this documentation isn't just to document the thing, but also to inform people what things exist, so people can browse through this, right, and then learn about that stuff. Are you in the stream? Are you in the audience, Mark? Because I saw you posted something, but I didn't see you in the chat. It'd be nice if you said hi. If you're hanging out, appreciate that. Get those algorithmic triggers up and going. I would like to do. Okay, let's write another thing here. SudokuPad development. Oh, a whole new big section. Hey, Mark, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. Open source some core component for shared use. This would include rendering engine, format parsing, you know, little things like that, where it benefits everybody if there's some additional homogeneity, right? So maybe if I can open source the renderer, you know, the thing that generates the SVGs, it'll help me, it'll force me to build a higher quality version of it as well. But it also means that somebody can use it to do something interesting, right? And it also might mean that somebody like Sudoku Maker could use it and say, hey, you know, let's improve it. Let's use the same thing, and we can share it, right? And maybe somebody can hack it into F puzzles as well. Who knows, right? Yeah, I've already open sourced some of the things, but I haven't been consistent about it, about the quality and how it's being used. Like I've put some code on my SudokuPad GitHub, but it's not necessarily the identical code that's being used, right? So it was a version of it that I pulled out a while ago, but if I changed it in the meantime, it's not updated on that repo, So it would have to be code that I actually use from that repo. So when I change it, it does get modified and updated. And if somebody else updates and changes it, those changes go back into the site as well, right? That's kind of the point of it. Otherwise, what's the point? All right. So I want to have a more consistent follow up on community sourced features, right? So I've been bad about that in the past, but I want to have a more consistent implemented path for suggestions for features, for votes on features, for feedback on features and things like that, right? So ideally that it'll be mostly automated, right? So there'll be a place where people can just throw things in and it kind of get voted on, and then eventually it gets to a master list, and maybe that master list goes to the Patreon or something like that. And then eventually it filters into a priority list, and then it gets associated with this particular release. And then as the work happens, if somebody subscribes, I don't know, for feedback on that feature, they'll get told, like, oh yeah, this just went into testing, or next Sunday there will be a stream when we're working on this feature, right? I could post my RAC puzzles on a SudokuPad fork until the main site has support for the styling features. Yeah. I mean, that's what alpha is for, right? So the alpha beta integration needs to be better. This kind of evolved over time. Let me think. How can I express something useful out of that? Because there's a lot of stuff that's just floating around my head, and it's not necessarily understandable without all the background. I think we want to have... Let me mention something about the schedule. Scheduled releases, features, and testing. So... I know that, this feature will be in testing on these days, therefore release will happen. So if somebody's asking, like people sometimes ask me, when will this feature be available? Okay, well, they might not realize, but maybe that feature has been sitting in beta waiting for feedback. And if I don't get any testing feedback, it'll never move forward, right? So I want to have a page somewhere, maybe we'll add that here, calendar of upcoming events and milestones. And this needs to be automatic. This needs to be not a page I need to edit, but something that's tied together with maybe GitHub issues or somewhere, some centralized place where I'll track all these things. Yeah. So, one of those features, let's say, that already exists are the user plugins. But again, no feedback because nobody knows that they exist. And the user plugins might be extended to be things that can travel with a puzzle. So you can test something out in SudokuPad on the actual website, right? Let me find where were the major new features? User plugins. I think user plugins will be very helpful with that kind of development, right? Even for testing potentially, because it would let me test something on, let's say, if it's scaled in the future, or if it's some other feature breaks it, it could still be tested against the current production release in a specific environment, right? So I could test a specific feature against the current production environment for a set of testers, right? They could subscribe it, they get the user plugin, and now they can test it in the current version without needing to switch to a different branch or anything like that. I need to also learn more about the timing of things, like how long does it take me? Right now I'm 2 weeks into an algorithm that I thought would be a few days of work, and I'm just dealing with lots of small things. Like today I realized, when I render 2 triangles in WebGL, there's potential aliasing artifacts on the diagonal between the triangles. So if the visual information I'm rendering is actually very accurate data of puzzles, i.e., 20,000 puzzles rendered into a single texture, if some of those pixels are changed for aliasing on artifacts, then those puzzles break, and I need to get rid of that. That's something, I don't know, you might have seen it earlier. I think it's one of these. Yeah, this is what I was working on here right now. This is a 5,000 by 5,000 pixel texture, and before I was rendering it as 2 triangles. Now I'm rendering it as a single triangle that's just larger than the texture. I don't know yet what effect that will have on performance and stuff, but at least I got rid of the artifacts. and I need to chase down the rest of the problems. I've been working on that for 2 weeks. You know, this is kind of part of this algorithm. This is part of the puzzle similarity measure. So it's definitely, I need to be able to pin things on calendar so people know what I'm working on. So people can say, hey, wait a second, dude, you've been 2 weeks into this thing. This other thing is delayed. Or I know that the thing will be delayed and what's really important and so on. You know, right now I probably should stop working on anything because I only have 2 weeks left before the trip to SudokuCon, and I only just bought shoes yesterday that I need to walk around in America, right? So there's probably so much stuff I need to do before the trip. I don't really like. I was supposed to buy a battery for my UPS to make sure my computer is available when I need it. You know, I need to probably plan out some of my tech. I was supposed to buy a new phone. I need a new phone. My old phone is like 6 years old, is partially broken, and it shut down when I was in Rome recently and didn't start up for 2 days. So I can't have that when I'm over there, and I might need my phone to connect to the server and fix something, right? So there's a lot of that sort of stuff going on. But let's bring things back to SudokuPad development. Yeah, more because of development community source features, scheduled releases. I mean, part of that is, oh yeah, reporting of progress and state/stages of features, right? So if somebody asked for a feature months ago and it's been in testing or it's been available as experimental and they don't know, then that feature will never process. That person might not, you know, say anything about it. They might not care. They might care. There might not be anything they can do about it. So it's important that I have a process for following up on that. The plugin functionality is perfectly functional. You just have to, it just doesn't have a user interface, right? So you just have to execute code, but what it'll do is it'll take some code you write and integrate it into, it'll store it in local storage and bring it up every time you run it. So you can test things like that for yourself. It's just local to your machine, right? It's like one of the reasons I developed that at all is because some people say, oh, you know, I can't have Temper Monkey scripts running on a browser on mobile or something. This will work on mobile. It's just that because it doesn't have a user interface and you have to bring these in via console commands to get it on your phone, you'd have to do it via, you know, ADB, and running a remote console against the browser in your phone, right? Which is a bit, yeah, tricky, but it's possible. But that's the thing, nobody shows any interest, so I'm not gonna work on that feature when I have no use case for it, right? And that's part of the reason why communication is so important. If you saw that on a list somewhere and it showed, hey, what's the progress? This is available, this is functional, you'd say, oh, wait a second, you know, it's functional, but oh, maybe it's not good enough. Maybe it needs a little bit more and then I can use it, right? Yeah, we need code submissions, right? We need a place because I have some informal ways for people to submit code, but maybe this needs to be more formalized, right? So what do you call it? User code? That sounds weird. Community code submissions. And what we really need is business process. We need a real process for doing that. Like, how do you do it? You need a list of things that need doing. You can apply to it. You get some instructions, etc., right? Hey, Rocket Zero, how are you doing? Thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate it. By the way, I watched your talk at the AMS recently. Yeah, that's the other thing. I'd love myself to actually get to a point where I more regularly talk about some of the clever and interesting things I do, you know, like even for my own satisfaction, things that might not necessarily be of interest to the solver puzzle community, but it'd be interesting to, you know, maybe not publish papers every time, but maybe write a blog post or something and even have it, you know, go guided in a certain direction, right? Like what, you know, the work I was showing off earlier will eventually make its way into Neil's mathematical paper, right? But for me, the technical aspect of it is quite interesting. And I used to enjoy that a long time ago, so I'd like to do more of that. More additional / improved and publicly documented APIs. Yeah, so APIs exist, but there isn't a place where you can find out what they are, how they work. I sometimes haphazardly add them quickly to on somebody's request, and then sometimes I forget which ones exist. Like there's an API right now to get some metadata of puzzles, but God knows what exactly it is. I'd have to literally look at the source code of the server to figure that out, right? And there should definitely, you know, one of these documentation pages should be, here are the public APIs, right? Oh yeah, we have these custom user interfaces. Yeah, let me put that as a major feature as well. Customized layouts. That's definitely something that I've been announcing for a long time, many years. And I think this kind of version of it is pretty good. I also want to work on, yeah, maybe this warrants its own section. What do I call it? Basically, I want to support other uses of this site. So, for example, I was thinking, you know, I've seen some people give presentations using SudokuPad. I'd like to support that. I was thinking, oh, you know, it would be great if you could have multiple puzzles open in tabs, like within the app, and you can just quickly switch between them. Obviously, customized layouts, you know, sort of like a presenter mode and things like that. So help for educators, for classroom use, you know, with a print version, you know, press a button and print 10 copies of 9 puzzles on a sheet, things like that, right? What do we call them? What do we call these? Additional use cases. That's kind of weird. I know what it means. We had use cases for something. I used the word use case before. Oh, use cases for the published puzzles, right? Yeah. Additional use cases. Presentation, education mode. Streamer layouts. Or maybe streaming layouts. You know, just general customized layouts, right? What do we call this? Hey, Tobes. Hey, babe. What should we call this? Because it's more than just a layout, because it's like a, you know, frameable version of the app and things like that. I think I do something similar with the importer, right? So for example, here, this is a customized layout embedded in here, where I can kind of refresh the puzzle and bring it in like that. Ooh, I have my planning notes here. We have an embeddable mode. I think that's 2Ds, right? Embedded mode. All right, fair enough. Print support, right? So for classroom use, right? Things like that. Maybe, oh yeah, multi-user, multi-solver system, right? We've used that before in the Sudoku stream, but it's not developed for ease of use for just anybody, right? And this might be good for like classroom mode. Don't even know what that means, but it could be a combination of multi-solver, special layouts, and things like that, right? Maybe a teacher can create a set of puzzles, kind of like a puzzle pack, and then have their kids work on it in a shared environment, you know, things like that, right? And again, anything like that will obviously be useful for lots of other things potentially as well. Let me think. Presentation education mode. Let me change this to support. Streaming layouts. Embedded mode. Okay, printing support. Multi-solver system. Classroom mode. Part of the multi-solver system, we have that remote viewing, which is also used for like the streaming tools. We have the streaming tools. Let me change that, because we literally have a thing called streaming tools, right? And that includes remote accessing a puzzle. Competition mode, you're absolutely right. competition mode. And part of the competition mode that I've already planned out in my head is detailed tracking of user interactions for cheat detection. Yeah, so it'll track your mouse movements, etc. It'll you know customized save data format. So you could have a data format that doesn't include the solution. You know, the solution could be server-side solution checking. So the solution check could happen on the server, right? Or the whole thing could be run like a multiplayer client-server system, right? Like you could have a client-server mode where the user doesn't have any really of the puzzle data. It literally has just an image of the puzzle. So let's say if you have a fog, the browser wouldn't even know what's under the fog. And if the user enters something, it'll go to the server and the server will respond, this is what it looks like now, right? So you could make it perfectly cheat-proof. Because obviously the user would be forced to interact with the server and the entire progress of the puzzle would be tracked on the server. Yeah, so that's the sort of thing I would like to do for a competition mode. And that's exactly the sort of thing for like the SudokuPad Pro tier access and things like that. In fact, I put that up here under Patreon plans. Where did I put Patreon Pro tier, other features, competition mode, custom shirt IDs, you know, things like that. I think that would be perfect for that. Streaming tools, you know, and I think right now it's like $10 or something, and it's definitely the sort of thing I want to be able to give to people. Even, you know, there's people like Bramster shouldn't have to pay, and if somebody can't afford it, but they're doing something useful for it with it, you know, like they're doing educational videos or something like that, I'll definitely want to have a mode. You know, there's a free trial version on Patreon as well, so that I want it to be as accessible as possible. And part of it is also to make it known what's available, right? Kind of, hey, here's a list of things. Now you're actually learning what things you might be able to do. I'm just checking our stream duration, but it's surprisingly difficult to find that anywhere. Okay. It's not been a super long stream, but my throat is starting to hurt, so I might not actually go that much longer. But Olima, thanks for that suggestion. Let me add... I don't know if major new features... but I'll add something about the puzzle effects. The trigger effects. Complex / generic trigger effects. The idea of the trigger effects would be that they actually would become quite low level and generic. So hopefully they could be used to implement new features just on the tooling side. Kind of how the raw rendering of SVG data helps people generate, you know, all sorts of things that I don't have to support specifically. The trigger effects could be used to implement new features in puzzles, right? Just with server support. Also, like one of the things I want to do with the trigger effects are things like hinting system. You know, you could literally build a hint system. You know, like some of the triggers I want to do are based on timing, right? So, like, you know, you could say, all right, a trigger X seconds from the so-and-so. Oh, and the trigger manipulation itself would be part of the trigger system. So one of the effects could be to start or stop, to enable or disable a trigger, right? So you could have a trigger that triggers 60 seconds of idle time and another trigger that stops that trigger, right? Or, you know, so you could say, okay, if you've been 60 seconds idle and you've typed in this digit and not this one, then show this dialogue with a hint, you know, that kind of stuff. Well, fog needs rendering support, right? But you could implement different rules of how the fog works potentially, right? Like the trigger effects aren't going to be execute this JavaScript code or, you know, load this extension into a browser. That's not what I have in mind. But interactions with the board, right? And I might even re-implement existing functionality as trigger effects, you know. Like the 3 in the corner, that was actually an early version of a trigger effect. In fact, it's a system that's named very similarly, but I had forgotten about it, and then I built a new system. So that stuff would go definitely into the trigger effect. All right. In conclusion, yeah, let me write a little conclusion here. There's gonna be a major, like the published puzzle stuff. I think that's the major step forward as to what SudokuPad means and how people interact with it. Right now, it's been just a player application. You know, people go to Logic Masters Germany to play it, but with published puzzles, hopefully, you know, people don't worry about their rating on Logic Masters Germany because that rating won't mean much because there aren't enough users there. A difficulty rating where 4 people say one thing and then one person is being a clown and then everybody says, "Oh my God, now my puzzle will never be featured on Crackling the Cryptic because one person trolled me." That's ridiculous, right? So hopefully I can do better than that, where, you know, hey, you know, now 100 people have played your puzzle. That's when it starts getting ratings, right? And the ratings will be taking into considerations people have been trolls in the past and things like that, right? Additional Sven buttons. You'll be able to do them yourself, I suppose. So, published puzzles will be the next big-ish step in the direction of user accounts and puzzle discoverability. Right. I think I'm gonna make it point forms. I'm not about to write prose here. In fact, I'm gonna indent that even to drive the point home. The other big part is progress and development will be more structured and predictable with clear avenues for community not just interaction but influence, right? I want the community to be able to clearly influence the development, you know, make their voices heard and things like that. I'm going to put spaces between these because I think these points are quite important and quite standalone. I think I want to be more public about how development works, more public information about progress, plans, and publish information on progress plans and what's actually happening, right? What's and actual and releases and released features, right? I want to have an avenue of publishing this. So every time a new version comes out, for 24 hours, there should be a promo. Hey, or there should be a little pop-up at the bottom saying, "Oh, version thing, here are the new features. You know, thanks. Click X or whatever," right? That kind of thing. What else do we want to do? What else do we want to remember from this? If I don't want to go through this whole list, new native app is overdue and critical. Right. I also want to become more public about, like, I need to, not public, I want to ask for support more often, you know, because I feel like it would be fair to people if I suddenly disappear because I can't run this thing anymore and they didn't know anything was going on, right? So I definitely would like to become more regular and more diligent about saying, hey, by the way, you want to support me on Patreon, or here's what's going on, or if this, you know, I'm not doing so great this month, or things like that, right? Nothing crazy, but I don't want to be unfair to people by not telling them that I need support, right? That doesn't make any sense. So more I don't even know how to say that. Asking for support is like, it's a hard thing for me to do, asking for anything. Yeah, the difficulty rating is part of the publishing process. So, you know, but it won't be just something, you know, it won't just be a rating people set. I mean, there's definitely a difficulty rating a setter can suggest. But ultimately, I hope that I can algorithmically determine the difficulty of puzzle depending on somebody's solve history and the setter's setting history. You know, so if a setter has set a puzzle that you find difficult, and this new puzzle has been, you know, rated a certain way by testers in certain ways and played in a certain timing, and they relate to your timing in a certain way, then, you know, so if your ratio, let's say on average to the setters is that you take 1.5 times as long to setters, and this puzzle took setters quite long, then it's probably difficult for you. But if on average you solve a puzzle in half the time than the setters, and even though this puzzle took a little bit longer than usual for the setters, it's not actually considered difficult for you, right? That kind of thing. I think that's part of how I want to run it. And it's not just based on timing, you know. Thankfully, I've actually spent quite a bit of time looking at that kind of data and doing research on that. All right, I think I can get rid of that. All right, so publish puzzles will be the next big step in the direction of user accounts and puzzle discoverability. Progress and development will be more structured and predictable with clear avenues for community influence, you know, feedback, blog posts, things like that. More public information about progress, plans, and released features, you know, kind of related, connected. New native app is overdue and critical. It just, you know, I need to figure it out how and when I'm going to do it. But obviously, since it'll take maybe half a year, you know, it's got to happen. I got to get started on it pretty soon. But I feel like I also might want to plan things out a little bit more before I just sit down and start building. Because I've sat down and started building quite a few times, and none of those have been released. So, you know. I think we want to support some of the commercial uses, like the Pro Tools, more specifically. So, you know, give back to financial supporters via Pro features to Patreons. And yeah, so I want to definitely give back to my biggest supporters, more specifically via Pro features to that's Patreon supporters via Pro features. Oops. Updates and more access. Discord, feedback forms, etc. Right? So there should be a feedback form that they can fill in, that they have access to. There should be Discord channels, things like that. You know, combination of these same things. People who are really keen on certain technical work, they should have a place where they can say, hey, I want this feature. I need it quickly. I want to do a video, whatever, right? I've had people in the past, you know, send me a 20 euro Ko-fi, and then I'll add a feature or fix the thing because it was on my timeline as well. But there's other things I might not do for good reasons, right? Oh, my throat is starting to get really uncomfortable. Okay. Puzzle publishing. Okay, we have these features. Patreon plans. Monetization, I still don't understand. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna, like, I'd love to be more public about it, but I also need to be cautious because you know, I don't know much about these things and I might do the very wrong things as well. Yeah, I think that kind of sums up what I want. I mean, to be honest, a lot of this stuff I wanted to do last year. But yeah, some things didn't work out the way, you know, the account system was supposed to happen last year and it didn't happen. I didn't even get started. I think actually, no, I did get started. I built the puzzle database. I forget, the puzzle database didn't exist at the beginning of last year, and that was my first step towards the account system. So, yeah, so that happened. But that was like step 1 out of 4 or something. So at that rate, it'll take me another 4 years to get the account system of the thing. And I'm not even actually aiming at that this year either. So maybe it'll happen because I'm not trying to make it happen. Well, I do have to thank everybody who has been supporting me, and even people who have just been suggesting features and asking for things, because it's very motivational. Like, sometimes the biggest problem is not knowing what people need and what they want. And knowing that people appreciate something I do, that's super helpful, actually. And, you know, this is a fully community-supported thing. That's it. Like, there's nobody else to make SudokuPad happen, right? Thanks for hanging out with the stream. I really appreciate you guys that stopped by. Like I said, I'd love to get my YouTube channel to monetization this year, not because I think it'll be significant money, but more because I'm curious about kind of what that looks like and how that works. It might actually be a bad thing, because I don't really want ads in the middle of my streams when I'm, you know, making no money on it. But it would be nice if I at least get the few hours in there. So we'll see how it goes. I'll probably have to start making videos. I'd like to do these update videos, talking about new features and new releases and things like that. But I have never done a video, and for some reason it really scares me. Probably shouldn't. Anyways, thanks for hanging out, CERN, Alima, Ich Tuesday, Iktes, I'm sure that's a pronunciation guide right now. Ish. Oh my god, I don't read pronunciation letters. Rockred Zero, Alima, Mark stopped by, Eliza was there earlier. Really appreciate you guys hanging out, and I hope some people will see this video down the line. Yeah, so 200, right? I do these weekly, so that's 4 years of videos. Holy moly. In fact, is it? Because it's almost, because I don't think I was tracking them strictly at the very start. If I sort them by date, can I do this? Nope. It doesn't. Oh no, yeah, 2021. First test stream. Then the initial ones, I didn't number them. And then I think I started number them around 40, 30. So I started with the 30th, but I don't know if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I don't even know. By the way, you mentioned earlier about an editor. That's actually, the cosmetic editor was here. It was part of what I was working on it here. Let me see, can I? This is a separate branch, which is now so old that it's basically unreconcilable. I probably would have to restart the work on it. In fact, you see how these buttons are. Holy moly. Do I not have a good... I was hoping I had a good... Like, there's a couple that were really cool that I might just from. Puzzle editor... I can't even... Oh, wow, this... Oh, yeah, so there were quite a few... Caging... Oh, yeah. Wow, I did a lot of episodes. That's kind of how I started, actually, it seems like it. Drawing cages, letter to publishing, letters and editors. Is that the one? Kind of the last one I did on these? Oh, yeah. No, I didn't even have the user interface yet for the editor here. I was just working on the... Holy moly. Yeah, I forget. We did come quite a long way. Alright, well, if you want, you can go back in the archive and dig around and see some of them there. Alright, that's it. I'm gonna take a break, and hopefully I can still speak tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Take care, and see you again at number 300, I suppose. Ciao, ciao, and have a good day. Take care, guys.